Hello and welcome to the Doug Geiser Show, Year 2, brought to you by the Ashland University Journalism and Digital Media Department. I'm Cade Krakis, and I'm joined by Doug Geiser, the head coach of the Ashland University football team. Coach, thanks so much for sitting down with me here today.
I appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you as well. Coach, when we take a look at this past weekend, you guys stayed at home for the first time since week 1, taking on the TiffinD Dragons, ultimately coming away with a 21-12 victory. First and foremost, let's debrief. How was the game?
The game was tremendous. When you get a chance to play the defending conference champions, that's always a little extra juice, especially since we're the second place team last year. So we expected a very intense game, a physical game, and I think the fans got definitely that.
And Coach, it was the first time you guys were back at home in 2 games. How nice is it to play in front of that home crowd at Jack Miller Stadium?
We love the home crowd at Jack Miller Stadium. We feed off the energy of that crowd and that group, and it becomes a proverbial 12th man, so to speak. I know it sounds cliche, but that is real. Our guys feed off that energy, so we always love playing in front of the home fans.
And in the offensive side of things, in that first half of play, you guys started to feed off some momentum from some trick plays. What went into the planning for those?
Well, we knew they had a very high-powered offense. We went into it trying to gain extra possessions or flip the field. So I've been contemplating it all week, the fake punt that we went for, and kind of confirmed. I woke up Saturday morning. I was like, yeah, we're doing this. Okay, and so we did it. The kids executed tremendously, and we got a first down out of it. I also wanted to go for it off our other punt formation we did in the second half, and actually got that one too. Just we shot ourselves in the foot by covering up a tight end on that. But you have to be aggressive in those games, and that's what we want to be. And the way you can be aggressive is being aggressive on special teams. So we want to make a point with that and just be relentless in that aggressiveness.
And coming into this game, Tiffin's kicker was 4 for 4 on field goals made on the season, and you guys were able to block 2 of his kicks. What has gone into the year in and year out progression of that field goal block unit?
Andy Tabler coaches our field goal block and PAT block team, does a tremendous job in preparation and teaching our guys. And then kind of the X factor was we finally got Tony Panunzio back on that team. He's been banged up a little bit during the year. This was the first game where he's actually been able to play on the field goal block team. And as you can see by the outcome of it, he was a big factor in that.
And Coach, when you take a look at the passing game this past week, quarterback Trevor Bazinski was able to find an awful lot of receivers. How nice is it to continue to have so many faces that he can look towards?
It's been almost a next man up mentality in the receiver room, and we've had to do that because of injury. And it was nice to see Jamari Croom step up this week. The constant of the whole mix though is Trevor Bazinski, and Trevor's doing a great job of leading, and he's throwing a very catchable ball. He threw some darts on Saturday, and 3 big plays, 3 touchdown passes, and hopefully we can get them all to step up at the same time this week, not just one guy.
And Coach, you always love to talk about certain specific players who deserve some honors. So do you want to take a look at who those game balls went to and whatnot? Yeah,
for this past week, the game ball went to Colin Strong, and Colin is actually the defensive player of the week. So we had the defensive player of the week 2 weeks in a row, with Jack being last week. The defensive player of the game was Mike Shimmick, who's going to be on the show later today. The offensive player of the game was Jamari Croom with 2 long touchdown passes. Special teams player of the game was Tony Panunzio. And then we always like to recognize the scout players. They're just a big factor in prepping us for those games. The scout offensive player of the week was Colin Ivey, who did a great impression of their tailback, Ronald Blackman, last week in practice. The scout defensive player was actually the scout secondary. So you're talking about 8 to 10 guys that have been showing up every week so far, gave us a great look in the secondary, and it paid off. Made some big plays against that tight man coverage. And then the scout special teams player of the week was Nick Sailors. So we always like to recognize the players after victories. We don't do any personal awards after defeats. It's a team thing. But when the team wins, you get a chance to recognize some special performances, and that's the way we like to do that right now.
And we highlighted the offense, and now diving a little bit more in depth on the defensive side of the ball. Who else stood out to help hold Tiffin to just 12 points?
Well, the special teams was a big part of that. With blocking 2 field goals, and then I think that pressure we're bringing there forced them to mishandle a snap on one. So that helped. That helped as well. Ben Holzapfel played tremendously as well. You look at E.J. Tia from the safety position. Both those guys had a tremendous game. Obviously, Mike Shimmick had a tremendous game, too, with a couple TFLs and bringing constant pressure off the edge. Jeff Barnett's starting to round back into form. So it's neat to see that pack mentality is coming back, and that speed and that pursuit, really showed up on Saturday, I thought.
And how do you hope your team kind of starts to build upon this 2-game winning streak that you guys have found after dropping the first 2?
Well, whenever you win, it helps. It gives confirmation to the work you've put in, to the process. And so really with us, we don't even really talk about, hey, we're going to go for 3 in a row. That's not, as you know me, that's not the deal, okay? We're not worried about anything that happened before. We're not worried about anything in the future. It's this week it's Ohio Dominican. And you prepare, you trust in the process, and you go out and shoot your shot on Saturday. And you don't get too high, you don't get too low. But I will say this, your confidence does build the more success you have. So that part, as far as momentum, that part is real. That part is real. So hopefully we can continue that on Saturday.
And you guys are going up against Ohio Dominican this coming Saturday for homecoming. A lot of faces are going to be there, obviously alumni and some potential incoming Eagles. It's a big, big game for you guys. How are you hoping the team comes out and plays?
Well, when you're coaching at a school that's got a tremendous tradition, you always want to preach that tradition to the players. So they have an understanding that it's more than just about them. It's about those who have come before you and the great things that they have achieved. So we're always talking about that history of Ashland football and the appreciation of that. The fact now that we get a chance to welcome back a lot of our former alums, players, friends of the program, it's a great homecoming, so to speak. I'm not using the same word to define the word, but it's great to have those old friends back. And they'll add to that atmosphere at Jack Miller Stadium. And we're going to need all that against a very tough Ohio Dominican team.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it. We'll dive a little bit more in depth on that Panthers side here coming soon.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It is now time for us to take a quick break and join you back here shortly. Stay tuned. You're watching the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV.
Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show. I'm currently joined by defensive lineman Michael Shimmick. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so to hop straight into things, through the first few weeks of the season, how has the locker room chemistry been now that you're 2-2 overall?
So morale has definitely been boosted after this big win we just had against Tiffin. Coming into the season, we had 2 very tough opponents in IUP and Ferris. We just had 2 big wins, though, against Hillsdale and Tiffin, so we're definitely feeling good.
And for Coach Geiser, has that rebound with those 2 wins, has that helped you notice anything in the coaching staff that's changed as well?
Well, yeah, and you put so much time and effort in, and you sacrifice hours that you need to get confirmation. You get paid, and the payment is getting a chance to win on Saturday. So both sides, both players and coaches, yeah, you've noticed definitely it's better to win than lose.
And then going back to Mike, this week you guys prepared for Tiffin. You came out with a couple of tackles for loss. What does preparing for a team like Tiffin, who won the GMAC last year, look like?
Yeah, so last year's such a tough game. Defense didn't play very well, and Coach Rose just told us all week it's not business, it's personal. So we really took this game personal. Watched film all week, prepared for these guys during practice, and came out with a big win.
You talked about that game last year. Well, your defensive line looked a lot of the same as last year. How has that helped you guys early in the season to have that same group of faces in there?
Yeah, we have a lot of returners inside and on the edge. We just bring it every practice. We know how to prepare and how to play, and we go from there.
And then speaking on the flip side of that, are there any younger classmen that the upperclassmen have noticed that are kind of rising through the ranks on that defensive line?
So on the defensive edge, Devontae James, he's a freshman. I've been trying to bring him up a lot and bring him up to the varsity level to have some good minutes. And then on the inside, he played a lot last year, but Bryson Getz, he's really filling into that role on the inside. Last year he was on the edge, but he's really filling into that role and playing well on the inside.
And then you always seem to find yourself at the right place at the right time on the defensive side of the ball. What does that extra work look like throughout the week building up to a certain game day?
Just a lot of watching film. That's the most important thing every single game. I try to watch all passes, all runs, see what their tendencies are, and you just go from there. Yeah.
And then lastly, upcoming this week, of course, Ohio Dominican. It's the homecoming game. What are your expectations for your defense in that game?
Ohio Dominican's always a tough opponent for Ashland. They always play us very tough. Watching film, their tackles, both the same from last year. We just got to come in with the same mentality that we had this week against Tiffin, and I know we'll get it done.
Well, Mike, thanks for joining us here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Mike, thanks you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me.
When we return back from this next commercial break, we'll be joined by Coach Tom Stacy. Stay tuned right here for the Doug Geiser Show on AUTV. Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show. I'm currently joined by Tom Stacy, who is the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Coach, thanks for taking some time to sit down.
Thank you, Ethan.
So to hop straight into things, you're now even 2-2. How are you feeling now with these 2 bounce-back wins?
Well, obviously, it makes it a lot easier to go out and practice. You get a couple wins underneath your belt. And, offensively, we're a work in progress. We're a very young offense. I've been here for about 14 years now, and this is the youngest offense I've been a part of. And our guys are getting better day by day, and I think we're showing some signs of being a pretty good unit.
So you talk about that youngest offense you've ever been a part of. How do you guys ensure that your guys always have that next man up mentality and they can just step in whenever that moment arises?
Well, you got to prepare them. You got to prepare them in meetings. You got to prepare them on the practice field each day. So it's a long process. It starts clear back in summer camp and goes throughout the season. But we've got a pretty veteran group of guys on offense too, the coaches, and I got a lot of good help, and the guys are doing a nice job. And like I said, I think we're getting better every day.
And taking a look at when you guys played Tiffin, you had a 47-yard touchdown, a 65-yard touchdown. What went into the preparation to really lead your offense in those huge chunk plays?
Well, it's about guys executing. We can draw up all the plays we want, but guys got to go out and execute. And we had great protection on those plays. The offensive line did a great job with the running backs. And then you got to have a quarterback and receivers that can execute the plays downfield. We call it play pitch and catch. You better be able to play pitch and catch and get that ball completed downfield. We're able to do that.
So you double as the quarterbacks coach as well. So Trevor Baczynski, the senior quarterback, how do you assess his play through the first 4 games of this year?
Well, it's been tough. It's been a different situation for Trevor because we've had a lot of change at the receiver position. A lot of guys in and out with injuries, illness, a bunch of different things. So it's been a little bit more of a transition year for him. He's handled it great. He's doing a great job with the leadership role and encouraging guys. And he's got a good demeanor to play the position. He's never too high, never too low. And he had a big game for us this past week.
So we talked about some of the younger guys on the outside. Obviously, the offensive line is pretty young this year as well. How do you work around that and making sure they feel confident up front that they can execute your plays?
Well, we have to give them the right tools to do that. We've got to have a really good play action pass where the scheme up front is not difficult. So you're not going to be as complex up front when you have a young offensive line. And a lot of it, is preparation. Jim Cordell does a great job with our guys. He's got a lot of good experience and been through the wars, and he gives them a lot of good things to go into a game with to execute what we need to have done.
And coming up this weekend, you guys are due for a matchup against ODU. What has to happen this week in the build-up to that game to find success?
Well, it doesn't get any easier. We've played some really good defenses. Really, all 4 teams that we've played have been very good defensively, and that's not going to change this week. This may be the best defense we played this year, and they're always good. They were the best defense in our league last year. They have some key returning players, and it's going to be a difficult challenge for us. So it's not going to get any easier. We've got to have a great week of practice.
All right, so it seems to be somebody else every week. Who's some offensive players that you're looking for to stand out in this homecoming game?
Well, I don't want to make those predictions, but obviously your quarterback has to play well, and that puts added pressure on Trevor. But He's a senior guy. He's able to handle that. And I think our two young running backs have done an excellent job. We're really pleased with their progress. Ty Stevenson and Lando Kamara have really run the ball well and gotten better and better each week. So running game's always a key, especially at Ashland. We want to have a physical running game and then have a great play action game off of that. And last week we were able to do some of that. And again, we have to continue to improve.
All right, Coach. Well, thanks for sitting down with me here today.
Thank you.
When we return back from this next commercial break, Cade and Coach Geiser will wrap up today's edition of the Doug Geiser Show. Stay tuned right here for the Doug Geiser Show on AUTV.
Welcome back to the Doug Geiser Show, right here on AUTV. Coach, it's time for our final segment of today's show. Before we dive into the upcoming schedule and some of the standings so far, first and foremost, let's go over this game against Ohio Dominican this coming weekend. How important would it be for you guys to remain undefeated in GMAC play?
We take pride in the fact of, we have a very successful record here at Jack Miller Stadium. I think through the years, we've won about 85% of our games. So I think there's a comfort level playing at home. But also, we want to put on a good show for the people that come back and support us during homecoming, for that home crowd as well. So it's important, and it's also important because, hey, it's the next game on the schedule. And every week you try to go 1-0 that week, and they're, Ohio Dominican's up next.
And, Coach, every week we talk about some of the standouts for both these two teams. Who should fans be on the lookout for?
I think if you look at Ohio Dominican, they're always known for their defense. And Coach Cummings is coaching their defense. It's his baby, and it's a very sound scheme. The players are physical. There are no smoke and mirrors. You know where they're going to line up, and to beat them, you got to physically beat them. But everything they do defensively is kind of predicated around their two linebackers. They do a great job. Michael Powers is a tremendous linebacker. So is Braden Taylor. And then you look at it; they have an all GMAC safety in Deshaun Hill. And really, what they do on defense kind of centers around those three players and Deshaun and Butler as well. So they're fast. They fly around, get off blocks very well. So it's a big challenge for our offense this week.
All right, Coach, let's take a look at the other games down the road before we wrap up today's show.
Okay.
When looking at the start of the season, there are obviously some tough teams in the mix. We've seen the IUPs, the Ferris, even the Hillsdale and Tiffin. What are you kind of circling down the road from now?
Well, as I see, you look back to it, and IUP is going to be in the top 25 this week. They're still undefeated. Ferris is obviously Ferris. They lost to, the opening game of the year there. Hillsdale went to Findlay last week and almost beat Findlay at Findlay. They went down to the last drive. So, we played a very tough schedule up to this point. Obviously, Tiffin is Tiffin, defending champions there. So, that the schedule doesn't get any easier. You're looking at the first part of the schedule. You're playing teams that have all won the GMAC on our first half of our schedule. The Indian Conference. So it's a unique challenge every week, but hopefully our guys are up for it mentally.
And the table started to shift as well. So when you take a look, you guys have catapulted yourself into third place. How are you guys feeling right now?
Hey, we don't even look at the standings at this point. We look at we break the season down into 4 quarters, and we're in the second quarter of the season right now, and we have our goals set for there. And hey, we play this game this week. Go out and shoot our shot, play to our standard of excellence, and hopefully it comes out in a good way.
And last thing, Coach, obviously this year symbolizes the 100th homecoming. How important is this game to the program?
It's tremendous. It means we are the oldest Division II program in the state, and to have a tradition, which we're actually in our 102nd year of football this year, so being around that long, there's been a lot of people that have been friends of the program and alums of the program. So it's always nice to be able to go out and show how well we can play to make them proud as they come back and support us.
Well, Coach, appreciate you so much for joining me today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
As a reminder, be sure to tune into 88.9 WRDL for full live game coverage of Ashland University versus the Ohio Dominican Panthers on Saturday, October 5th, with kickoff set for 1 p.m. And if you want to hear more from Coach Geiser, tune into The Early Birds Word Tuesday mornings at 7:30 a.m. for exclusive coverage of AU football. You can also catch the full game on tape delay on Rock Entertainment Sports Network, brought to you by the Ashland University Journalism and Digital Media Department. I'm Cade Krakis saying thank you so much for tuning into the Doug Geiser Show right here on AUTV.